Have you ever stared at a grammar book for so long that the words just stopped making sense?
Oh, absolutely. I once spent 3 hours memorizing a massive chart of English verb tenses, and my brain just flatlined.
Oh no. And did that actually help you speak better the next day?
Not at all. I walked into a cafe, tried to order a coffee using the future perfect continuous tense, and completely froze. The barista just stared at me.
Welcome back to Everyday English Learning, the podcast where we make language learning feel like a warm cup of tea.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Lily. Today, we are throwing away those stressful grammar charts and learning how to absorb English naturally.
Wait, throwing them away? I thought memorizing grammar was the most important part of learning a language.
It is important, but there is a much cozier, more effective way to learn it. Instead of forcing yourself to memorize rigid rules, we are going to talk about how to simply notice patterns.
Notice patterns? That sounds a lot less exhausting than my coffee shop disaster.
It really is. We are focusing on something called cozy input. By the end of this episode, you will know exactly how to use your favorite books, podcasts, and shows to get the hang of grammar without burning out.
I need this. Because my old strategy of staring at a textbook until my eyes hurt is definitely broken.
We have all been there, but before we get to the cozy part, let's talk about why our brains actually reject those giant grammar charts, and what happens when we try to force it.
Lead the way. I am very ready to stop freezing in front of baristas.
Let's start with that coffee shop moment. When you were standing there, what was your brain actually doing?
Oh, it was a disaster. I was literally seeing a textbook page in my head. I was searching for the right column and row.
Exactly. You were trying to do math instead of having a natural conversation. That is the biggest trap of traditional grammar study.
It really feels like math. We assume that if we memorize the formula, we will automatically know how to speak.
But our brains do not work that way. When we try to force giant charts into our memory, we just experience cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload. That is a very polite way to say my brain completely crashed while ordering a simple latte.
Yes, exactly. A complete system crash. We think we are learning, but we are just creating an extra step.
What do you mean by an extra step?
Well, instead of just speaking, you are translating your thought, finding the grammar rule, checking the exceptions, and then finally speaking.
Wow, yes. That is exhausting, and that stress makes it impossible to actually listen to the other person.
Yes, you are too busy building the perfect sentence. That is the first big shift we need to make today.
We have to stop building sentences from scratch using formulas. But if we do not use the formulas, what do we use?
Think about your native language. Do you think about the past perfect tense when you tell a funny story to a friend?
No, never. I just talk. The words just feel right, or they feel strange. It is second nature.
Exactly. It is second nature. You know what sounds right because you have heard those patterns thousands of times in real life.
So, we need to recreate that feeling in English. We need to absorb the patterns until they become second nature.
Yes, and that brings us to the concept of cozy input. It is about surrounding yourself with English that you actually enjoy.
Cozy input. I love the sound of that. It definitely beats staring at a grammar workbook until midnight.
It really does. Cozy input means reading a comfortable book, watching a favorite show, or listening to a podcast like this one.
But wait, if I am just relaxing and watching a fun show, am I actually learning? It feels like cheating.
That is a very common objection. We are conditioned to believe that learning must be painful and exhausting to be effective.
Right. If my eyes do not hurt, I am not really studying. That is definitely my old mindset.
But science shows the opposite. When you are relaxed and enjoying the story, your brain is actually much better at absorbing new information.
To absorb something, like a sponge soaking up water, right? Just taking it in without forcing it.
Exactly. You absorb the language naturally. But there is a catch. You cannot just completely zone out and ignore the words.
There is always a catch. So I cannot just fall asleep while a movie plays in the background?
Sadly, no. Sleep learning is not quite what we mean by cozy input. You still have to be engaged.
Okay, fair enough. So I am awake, I have my tea, and I am watching a show. What exactly am I supposed to do?
You need to move from passive listening to active noticing. You have to start paying attention to how words group together.
Noticing patterns. Okay, I understand the goal. But how do I actually do that without turning my movie back into a stressful grammar lesson?
The trick is to avoid treating the movie like a textbook. Let me tell you about the time I ruined a perfectly good mystery series for myself.
Oh, this sounds like a cautionary tale. What exactly did you do?
I decided to watch a very popular Spanish detective drama. The setting was moody, the characters were interesting, and the plot was highly rated. But I told myself I had to write down every single word and grammar structure I did not immediately recognize.
I am already wincing. Let me guess, your relaxing evening turned into a massive research project?
Exactly. I lasted about 20 minutes. I paused the show so many times to write in my notebook that I completely lost the plot. I did not know who stole the diamonds, but I had a very neat list of irregular verbs and a headache.
Well, at least your priorities were clear. But seriously, that is exactly what I used to do. I would pause a movie 40 times in 1 hour, and by the end, I hated the movie.
Right. That is the friction. We want the benefits of cozy input, but our old academic habits take over. We try to capture everything, and we end up catching nothing. We just burn ourselves out.
So, how do we fix it? How do we notice patterns without keeping a massive notebook on the couch and ruining the story?
We change the strategy. Instead of trying to catch everything, you zoom in on just one thing. Before you hit play, give your brain a very tiny, specific mission.
A tiny mission. Okay, give me an example. What should I be listening for if I am watching a sitcom?
You could just listen for how characters apologize. That is it. If you do not know a random noun they use, you ignore it. You are only listening for apologies.
That takes a lot of pressure off. I am not worrying about complex verb tenses or new slang. I am just waiting for someone to do something wrong and say sorry.
Yes. And because you are focused, you will start noticing that they do not just say, "I am sorry" every time. You might hear, "My bad," or "I messed up," or "I owe you an apology."
That makes total sense. You are absorbing the chunks of language they actually use in a specific situation, rather than memorizing a rigid list.
Exactly. You learn the language in context. You see the character's facial expression, you hear the emotion in their voice, and the phrase sticks in your memory.
It feels like a scavenger hunt. What is another tiny mission a learner could try?
If you want to focus on a grammar pattern, you could just notice when they use the past continuous tense. You just wait for sentences like, I was walking to the store when it happened.
Okay, so when I hear I was doing something, I just make a mental note?
Yes. You do not pause the show. You do not analyze the sentence structure. You just notice it. You catch yourself recognizing the pattern. You say, ah, there it is, and you let the movie keep playing.
I have to admit, that sounds incredibly relaxing compared to my old method.
It is. When you zoom in on one pattern, your brain naturally filters out the noise. You hear the structure so many times that it eventually becomes second nature.
I love the idea of building an instinct instead of filling out a spreadsheet. But wait, I see a potential problem here.
What is the problem?
What if I am noticing patterns, but my brain deduces the wrong rule? What if I accidentally teach myself the wrong grammar because I misunderstood the context?
That is the number one fear people have when they step away from textbooks. As adult learners, we are absolutely terrified of learning a mistake.
Exactly. If I hear a slang phrase and think it is formal, I might accidentally insult my boss. Or worse, what if I completely misunderstand a verb tense?
It is a valid fear, but here is the key distinction. Cozy input is a self-correcting system over time, as long as you keep consuming the language.
A self-correcting system. How does that work? If I make a mistake in my head, who is correcting me?
The language itself corrects you. Let's use a vocabulary example first. Say you hear a teenager on a TV show say, I am out, when they leave a room.
Okay, and I deduce the rule that I am out just means goodbye.
Right. And maybe you plan to say that at the end of a very serious corporate meeting.
Oh no. Thank you for the quarterly report, everyone. I am out.
Exactly. That would be terrible. But if you are actually doing cozy input consistently, you do not just watch one teenager. You watch lawyers, doctors, and news anchors.
Ah, I see. I will never hear the news anchor finish a broadcast by saying, I am out.
Exactly. Your brain starts to connect the dots. You realize, wait, only the teenagers in this specific show say that phrase. You naturally adjust your internal rule without opening a grammar book.
Okay, so the sheer volume of input protects me from jumping to conclusions. The more I listen, the more accurate my internal rulebook becomes.
Yes. Now, let's look at actual grammar, like prepositions. Let's say you hear someone say, I am on the bus. So you deduce that for vehicles, we use on.
Right. So the next day, I say, I am on the car, which is definitely wrong, unless I am surfing on the roof of the vehicle.
Yes, that is a great image. But here is what happens next. You keep listening to your cozy podcasts. You hear, get in the car, and she left her phone in the car.
My brain gets a conflict error. The new information does not match my old rule.
Yes, the new input conflicts with your incorrect rule. And your brain is incredibly good at resolving conflicts. It notices that on goes with large transport like buses, and in goes with personal transport like cars.
And it does that automatically, without me writing down a massive chart of transport prepositions.
Yes, but there is one realistic limitation we have to talk about. You have to tolerate a little bit of uncertainty.
That is the hardest part. As adults, we hate uncertainty. We want the correct formula immediately, so we never look foolish.
Which brings us back to our key distinction. A textbook gives you the illusion of certainty, but it ruins your speaking flow. Cozy input gives you a messy start, but it leads to true, natural fluency.
The illusion of certainty. That is powerful. I felt certain when I memorized my giant verb chart, but I froze when I actually tried to order coffee.
Exactly. If you have an important job interview tomorrow, you should look up specific professional vocabulary. Active study still has a place.
Active study is for precision, but cozy input is for flow. It helps me stop translating in my head.
Precisely. You are building a massive web of connections instead of memorizing a rigid list.
I love that image, but I still need to know how to actually build this habit. How do I start doing this tonight without falling back into my old stressful routines?
If you want to start tonight without falling back into your old habits, we need a very simple 3-step routine. I call it the cozy input formula.
A formula to replace my broken grammar formulas. I like it. What is step 1?
Step 1 is to choose a low-stakes environment. This means picking a show, podcast, or book that you already understand easily. This is not the time for a complex historical documentary.
So, I should probably pick a sitcom I have already seen? Or a casual podcast like this one?
Exactly. The language should feel familiar. Step 2 is to assign yourself one tiny mission before you hit play.
Right, like we talked about earlier. Just listening for apologies, or just noticing the past continuous tense.
Yes. Or, to completely resolve your coffee shop disaster, your tiny mission could just be listening to how people order food and drinks.
Ah, that would have saved me so much pain. Instead of trying to construct the perfect future perfect continuous sentence, I could have just noticed that real people usually say, "Can I get a latte?"
Precisely. You notice the natural pattern. And that brings us to step 3, which is the most important rule for recovering perfectionists.
Okay, I am listening. What is the rule?
It is the notice and release rule. When you hear your target pattern, you mentally acknowledge it, and then you immediately release it. You do not pause the video, and you do not write it down.
Do not write it down? That goes against every study habit I have ever learned.
I know. But the moment you grab a pen, you turn cozy input into active study. You have to trust that if a pattern is truly important, it will show up again.
Okay, but let's imagine a difficult situation. What if I hear a completely bizarre sentence structure? It makes no sense, and it is driving me crazy. Can I pause it then?
No. You have to let it go. If it is a rare structure, you do not need it yet. If it is common, you will hear it again. Wait until you hear a pattern 3 times before you even think about looking it up.
Okay, 3 strikes before I am allowed to open a dictionary or a grammar book. That actually feels very freeing.
It is incredibly freeing. You are training your brain to tolerate ambiguity. You are learning to enjoy the language even when you do not understand 100% of it.
I can definitely do that tonight. I will make tea, turn on a familiar show, and just try to notice one thing.
Let's give our listeners a task too. The next time you watch a movie or listen to an English podcast, give yourself a tiny mission. Listen only for how people say goodbye.
That is a great task. Just notice if they say, "See you," "Take care," or "I am out."
Exactly. Notice it, release it, and let the pattern sink in.
I am fully on board with this system. But we still need to break down some of the great vocabulary we use today, right?
We certainly do. We have some excellent phrases to review in meaning moments.
Perfect. Let's look at those phrases so our listeners can add them to their cozy input list.
Welcome to Meaning Moments. This is where we review the language we use today so you can confidently add it to your own cozy input routine.
I am ready. And I think we have to start with the phrase that perfectly described my coffee shop disaster.
You mean cognitive overload?
Yes, cognitive overload. It is such a precise way to describe what happens when you try to memorize a massive verb chart and speak at the same time.
Exactly. Cognitive relates to your brain and thinking process, and overload means too much of something. So, cognitive overload is when your brain receives too much information to process at once. It just shuts down.
How do we use it in a normal sentence? I usually just say, my brain hurts, or I am confused.
That is a perfect moment for a say it better upgrade. Instead of saying, my brain hurts, you can say, I am experiencing cognitive overload. Or, for a slightly more casual upgrade, you can say, this is a lot to process.
I really like, this is a lot to process. It sounds polite but honest.
It is very useful in professional settings. Now, let's look at the exact opposite of cognitive overload. The phrase is second nature.
We talked about this when we discussed how we speak our native languages. It just feels natural.
Right. When something is second nature, you have done it so many times that you do not have to think about the rules anymore. It becomes an automatic habit.
Like driving a car or typing on a keyboard. At first, it takes all your focus, but eventually, it becomes second nature.
Perfect example. Let's do a quick pronunciation practice for this one. Repeat. It is second nature.
It is second nature.
Great. Next up, we have a fun phrase you used when I mentioned giving your brain a tiny mission. You called it a scavenger hunt.
A scavenger hunt. That is a popular party game where you are given a list of specific, random items to find, right?
Exactly. You are searching for hidden things. When you do cozy input, you are turning your TV show into a language scavenger hunt. You are only looking for one specific grammar pattern, like apologies or prepositions.
Here is another say it better moment. Instead of saying, I am looking for grammar rules, which sounds a bit boring, you could say, I am doing a language scavenger hunt. It changes the whole mood of studying.
It absolutely does. Now, let's look at the phrase self-correcting. We used this to describe why cozy input works over time.
Right. I was very worried about accidentally learning the wrong grammar rule from a TV show.
And I told you, the system is self-correcting. Self-correcting means it fixes its own mistakes automatically. You do not need a teacher to step in.
Because the more I listen, the more my brain naturally notices when an old rule does not match the new reality.
Precisely. Instead of saying, I will fix my mistakes later, an upgrade is, the process is self-correcting. It requires patience. Which brings us to our final, and maybe most important phrase today.
I know which one this is. Tolerate ambiguity. This is definitely the hardest one for me.
It is difficult for a lot of adult learners. To tolerate means to accept something slightly unpleasant without getting upset. And ambiguity means a situation that is not clear or has multiple possible meanings.
So, to tolerate ambiguity means you accept that you do not understand every single word, and you refuse to let it ruin the movie.
Exactly. You sit with the uncertainty. Instead of saying, I hate not knowing, a say it better upgrade would be, I am learning to tolerate ambiguity.
Okay, I will try to say that next time I want to pause a movie to check a dictionary. I am learning to tolerate ambiguity.
Let's turn that into a guided practice. I want our listeners to practice this feeling of acceptance. I will give you a situation, and Jake, you provide the natural response using our new mindset. Ready?
I am ready. Give me a stressful scenario.
You are watching a new mystery movie in English. The detective just used a strange slang word you have never heard before. Your old habit is to pause the movie and grab your notebook. What do you do instead?
I notice the word, I release it, and I let the movie keep playing. I tolerate the ambiguity.
Perfect. Now you try, listeners. You are reading a comfortable book. You find a complex, unusual verb tense on page 3. You desperately want to stop and analyze the grammar. What do you do instead?
You notice the structure, you release it, and you keep reading the story. You let the system be self-correcting.
Exactly. You trust the process over the rules. You are now fully equipped to start your own cozy input routine tonight.
I have my tea ready, and I have my tiny mission prepared. I am officially done with stressful grammar charts.
It sounds like you have the perfect evening plan, Jake. No massive verb charts, no cognitive overload, just a good show and a tiny mission.
That is exactly the plan. And tomorrow morning, I am going to walk into that cafe, tolerate the ambiguity, and just ask for a coffee like a normal person.
Ha ha ha. I believe in you. If we take away one thing today, it is that forcing giant grammar rules actually breaks our natural speaking flow. We need to rebuild that instinct.
Right. We have to replace the academic stress with cozy input. You find a comfortable book or a familiar podcast, and you give your brain a very specific language scavenger hunt.
You notice the pattern, you release it without writing it down, and you trust that the system will self-correct over time. You do not have to understand every single word to make real progress.
Which brings us to our question for you all today. What is your absolute favorite show, movie, or podcast to use for cozy input? Tell us in the comments below.
We would love to hear your best recommendations, and if this episode helped you relax your study routine, please subscribe to Everyday English Learning so we can keep sharing these strategies with you.
We are building a better habit together. And remember, fluency is not a math test you have to pass. It is just a new neighborhood you are getting comfortable in.
I love that. I'm Lily.
And I'm Jake.
Take care of yourselves and enjoy your cozy input tonight.
See you next time, and keep noticing those natural patterns.